We're all imperfect, and on this podcast, I'll be chatting with a variety of interesting people who are willing to make themselves vulnerable by sharing their own struggles and imperfections.
But in retrospect, it's because like what I've been working towards was relatively shallow. Like it was like win that Olympic gold medal, that's going to be enough. And it's the standard, it's never enough thing. Like, okay, but what if you win all of them? No one's done that before. Like no one's held them all at the same time. So if you do that, that's going to be enough. And then when I had it, I was like, okay, the logic, then it's kind of like, then what?
I'm Hugh van Cuylenburg from the Resilience Project.
And I'm Ryan Shelton from my mum.
And I'm Josh from Hugh's mum.
And this is The Imperfects.
This is The Imperfects, and we're happy that you're listening to us.
We're stoked. I'm genuinely stoked that you're listening to us.
Yeah, thank you, by the way. Thanks for everyone who listens.
We don't thank people enough.
Ever.
No, we never
the
do.
first time?
Thanks, guys.
I mean, for a bloody gratitude guy over here, he's not showing much of it, is he?
No, I'm obviously excited by today's guest because I love Olympics and track and field and men called Steve.
What other Steves do you like?
Steve Waugh.
So who gets a mention?
Yeah.
He does get a mention. So
Can
obviously
you think
that's
of a
fine.
third Steve, considering you've made such a...
Steve Buscemi.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you do love Steves.
I love Steve's. I actually, that's what I wanted to change my name to when I was a kinder. I said to Mum, I just want to be called Steve.
Steve Buscemi.
Just call me Bush. and the guest today, obviously Steve Hooker, another wonderful Steve.
Yes. But before we do that, I'd like to do something which we don't often do in this podcast. If it's okay with you guys, I wouldn't mind jumping back a few episodes. I'd love to just jump back on the pink dildo if I could. For a bit.
Well, God, it's stressful because I don't know what to say to that, and I want to say the right thing to jump on your pink dildo.
No.
Like, oh no, this is so tragic. I can't think of the right line.
It's low hanging fruit.
It
Too
is.
many
It's
that-
almost too low hanging.
Well, to put your mind at rest, I didn't mean literally.
Well, that's
No.
good.
I wanted to go back in time to when we
No, I
talked.
don't think it needed the clarification.
I don't think anyone is expecting it to be literal.
No, this isn't like we're not becoming Wipeout, where it's like this physical game show part of the Imperfect. It was like, all right, Hugh's got through the opening, he's gone through the opening chat. Now he's off to the pink dildo. Let's see how he lands.
Obviously, I'm referring to, or for those of you who didn't listen to the episode we did with Tim Minchin, I just revealed a story whereby someone had left their pink dildo on our hard rubbish collection
Yeah.
Yes.
and caused a whole lot of events.
Evidence can be found on the Instagram.
Yes,
Yeah.
because I had footage of it from our security cameras out front of our house.
Mm.
So there's a few things that have happened. The ripples this has caused in my life. I would just really like to so it's become the new thing that people say to me when they just walk past me in the street, and it's just really awkward. And I just
yell
love
at pink dildo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
There he is.
I'll give you three examples out of many. But the first one, I was at one of our favourite cafes the other day on the communal table, and I was sitting there by myself, and there were two other guys on the table who were very both tradies and both look like tough men.
Yeah.
And
You
a guy,
would have got along with them.
yeah, plenty to
Yeah, plenty to chat about.
no, we didn't actually talk, but we were sitting quite close. And a guy just walked past, and all he said was, "Mate, love the pink dildo." That's all he said as he
Yeah.
walked past.
And what
Wow.
the two guys?
And just left me there with these two guys.
Did you explain to the guys?
No, we weren't sitting close enough for me to. But they heard.
Yeah, but they would get it. They'd understand. Understand the context, no doubt.
Second one, I was at a function which you knew about, Josh, on Saturday night, which was our school, 100 years of sport at our school.
So were you just at a school reunion? Are you back again
I
for
have
another
had so many,
milestone?
having done nothing to do with my school. It's 100 years. The
Yeah.
school's been over 100 years this year, and
Yeah.
so all of a sudden it's event after event.
I must have missed the invites, I think.
Yeah.
No, you would have got them. I just don't think you would have wanted to go
Okay.
to these things.
Doesn't sound like you got one.
Certainly not to the 100 years of sport one.
So 100 years of sport,
Mm.
and one of the nicest men of all time, the Reverend Jerry Revere. Do you remember Jerry Revere?
I do. Spike of the Biker.
Yeah, he used to play a character at Assembly called Spike of the Biker, where he'd pretend to dress up as a biker, but
Yeah.
say things about God.
Mm.
So,
But his name's Jerry Revere.
yeah, the Reverend.
What a name.
Jerry.
Reverend Jerry Revere.
Yeah. I was tweeting to Jerry Revere at this
The more I
dinner.
think about it, I imagine the Reverend Jerry Revere as a wrestler. It's a good wrestling name.
It is.
Can you smell what the Reverend's cooking?
So I'm chatting to the Reverend, like a man of church and God, and we're just chatting away.
That's the phrase.
Yeah.
A man of church.
And this girl walks past and tapped me on the shoulder. She goes, "Hey, I just want to say, love the pink dildo," and just walks off. And leaves me with that, with the good Reverend.
What
Lovely
did the
Reverend.
Reverend Joe Revere say? Just he would have ignored it.
Oh, he looked horrified. And the more I
Yeah.
tried to explain it, the more I think he thought I was just making something up.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh no, I do this podcast, Jerry. It's this. I do this podcast, and on the podcast, it just."
Yeah, yeah.
I told him a story. I told him the whole story. I could see him going, "Well, this isn't true. Just own it."
Poor Jerry. That's now when he thinks Hugh Van Cuylenburg.
That's what he thinks.
He's
Yeah.
imagining you jumping on,
But everyone who just don't.
as we all are now, since you brought it up.
The girls at work here say the Resilience Project is based in the same building as we are.
Mm.
And 2 days after the episode came out, there's one girl sitting at the table who'd listened to the episode, the other two hadn't. And she just casually said, "Hey, Hugh, I love the pink dildo." And I saw the look in the other girls' faces. Just maybe if people could say to me if they see me,
Love the podcast episode about the pink dildo.
or maybe just say I love the PD. I'm keen to know
Oh.
that I would like to know that you like it.
Oh, you
That-
are interested to get feedback on the
yeah,
PD.
yeah, if
Yeah.
that's what you want to communicate, just say I like the PD.
Okay.
And it sounds like professional development. People will think I did professional development for you.
Oh,
Perfect.
that is perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the PD.
Okay, so that's feedback to everyone out there. If you see Hugh and you want to heap praise on him, he's very open to that. But if it's regarding the pink dildo, please refer to it as the PD,
Just say I love the PD. So I need to say I love the PD, and I will.
and you'll
Okay.
wink, and you'll both know
Yeah,
that you're
We
talking
love
about the pink dildo.
the story about that.
Wow. Okay. Good update.
And just quickly, the question I have been asked so many times is: Did the wonderful staff member I refer to see it? Well, she definitely saw it, and she so much so that she had discussed it with her 18-year-old son at length.
At length, you are.
That's not deliberate. They discussed it for quite a while, and the summary that they had, I spoke to her about. I said, "I'm sorry that was unspoken between us when we talked about it. I just didn't know how to bring it up." And she said, "Yeah, I chatted about it to my son for a long time," and she said, we had decided that it was really great that you were so honest and you were happy to just say, "Yep, this is mine, but we don't need it anymore. We're putting it out the front because that's where you did." That's the conclusion she came to. She's thinking, I was thinking, good on you for being so honest. So there was 4 months of my life where this wonderful staff
4
member,
months of that.
June, July, August, September,
Oh,
4
since the
months.
hard rubbish footage.
Yeah, since the hard
Wow.
rubbish footage, since the day that was deposited there, I see her.
Inserted.
Since the day that was left there on the hard rubbish pile, I see her 3 times. I've walked past her and she's going, "Good on him for being so honest."
Wow.
So
And do
I'm
you feel
so
like
happy.
the relationship has changed since the truth has come out?
absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's just a moral there. If you're unsure about something in your life, you talk to the person about it.
But also, good on her for having what a wonderful perspective.
What a generous.
Generous
Yeah.
perspective from her.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
true. And the perfect introduction to Steve Hooker, Australian Olympian gold medalist.
For all the track and field fans who have only tuned into this episode,
I mean, having said that, he is a pole vaulter. So, I mean, what better intro could you want?
Steve Hooker is, well, you'll hear it in the episode, but he's been a family friend of ours since 1986. We first met Steve and his family. And this episode means a lot because Steve and I have reconnected over our very big, hard thing that we would like to do together.
Oh, come on.
That's what it is. That is what it is.
You have absolutely
Forcing that
manipulated
in.
that,
No.
sentence.
Yeah, no.
Big hard thing. You've never said that in your life. Oh, I've got to go do a big hard thing.
Big, long, hard thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like if I was to, Steve and I have reconnected over a challenge that we're going to do together, and we'll talk about in the episode, but it's been very life-changing to me.
Yeah.
And it's a very hard thing that we are trying to do together.
Okay.
I don't think that's fine to say that.
No, it's well, it is. It's very hard.
With
And I
a
think-
with a baton.
Yep. With a,
Yeah. Do you know what colour the baton is that you'd be passing between the four of you?
it has to be pink now.
It
It has to be
absolutely has to be pink. That is actually compulsory now.
Okay. I will have to ask.
Actually, it doesn't have to be the baton. It has to be a dildo. I mean, now that we've said it, how disappointing would it be if it's not? Honestly.
I can guarantee. I don't want to spoil the episode, but Steve, myself, and a couple of other tour guys are going to try and break a national record over a certain event, and it's going to be held at a big event in Melbourne. It's a big track and field event. They've let us in. I can't believe it. They will not let us do a pink dildo, but I will request a pink baton.
I mean, who's to say there's no rules against you doing the event as planned, but then doing a separate exhibition event where you replay the relay with a pink dildo. I mean, that's worth
If it means
thinking
more
about.
people will donate to our charity of choice, yes, we will consider that.
That is, can't take that back. That is a verbal contract. Everyone remember he said that.
Steve Hooker, a wonderful man. I love this episode so much, and I hope everyone else does. Well, I am beside myself.
Oh.
I am.
Is that prepared? I'm beside myself. I've never heard you say I'm beside myself.
That's how I feel.
You're so excited.
Yep.
I can understand why.
We're joined by track and field athletic, a legend of track and field in Australia and also globally. Member of the Australian Sports Hall of Fame, Steve Hooker. Welcome to the Imperfects.
Stephen Hooker.
So lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
It really is. I mean, I know Hugh. I mean, I feel like we should do more of a bio because there is a lot of. I feel like all the awards and medals and records and.
Well, Josh and Ryan, you both know that I always read the bio. Like I need to be able to read the bio.
Yeah.
I don't. Hence is my love for this man.
Yeah.
And for this sport.
Yeah.
I don't need to read it. I
It's
just
just
know.
a freestyle bio.
Yeah.
You know all the stats.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. This is
And I-
impressive.
And I haven't checked them. This is
Oh, don't worry. I'll fact check you on the way.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Okay, Steve Hooker, pole vaulter.
correct.
Wow. He's good. He's real good.
Okay, tell me about your childhood. No. So Australian pole vaulter. I'm going to do the major gold medals here. So 2006, the Commonwealth Games gold medalist in Melbourne. Now, as someone who watches a lot of sport, that might have been one of your career highlights as an athlete. For me, as a watcher of sport, that was one of my career highlights. I remember sitting there at the MCG.
I was there
Actually,
too. We were there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we were
both
sitting
there.
with your parents, Steve.
Yeah,
Oh, amazing.
it was
Yeah.
amazing.
Whoa.
Yeah.
How are they coping?
They were so relaxed. They were fine.
More relaxed than us, I think. That's
yeah,
good.
yeah,
Because
totally.
context on that, you guys have all known each other for a long time.
Yeah, which we'll get into definitely. I want
Okay.
to tell the story of how we know each other.
Sorry, you mean to spoil the. God, let me know when I can talk. It should be like a little light, Ryan light.
So Commonwealth Games gold medal 2006. 2008 wins gold medal at the Olympics in Beijing.
Which was
Um,
significant
Yeah, that's
For-
unbelievable.
for the reason of weren't you like the first man to win a medal or a gold medal in like decades and decades?
The first guy to win a gold medal. We had lots of very successful females in
Yeah.
the interim. But the first man to win a track and field gold medal in 40 years. The previous one was Ralph de Bell, who won the 800 metres in 1968, who was my dad's training partner.
Oh, I know
Really?
that. I've read
Wow.
Ralph de Bell's book.
I know you have
Yeah,
because you've told me a lot about it.
and you couldn't give a shit.
I feigned interest. No, it was interesting, but I'm just not as passionate as
So
you.
yeah,
So
Ryan, good pickup.
significant. No,
Incredible.
Sorry to jump in. I'm sure you would have said it.
It was a huge moment.
Light wasn't on, but it was good.
I know.
Yeah.
It was a risky move, wasn't it?
2009 won a gold medal at the World Champs. 2010 won a Commonwealth gold medal in New Delhi. You won 2 World Indoor Championships.
Just
One?
Just the one at the
Just the
start
one?
of 2010, but I won a bronze in 2008 as well
okay,
at the
yeah.
World Indoors.
Okay,
yeah.
right. Well, I said it before, Hall of Famer. OAM, awarded an OAM.
Jeez, OAM.
They give them to everyone that wins a gold medal. I
Okay.
think.
Still,
So
though.
it sort of comes with that. It's like a
Sure.
package deal.
Yeah.
The gold medal's impressive, but the OAM is like that's like more. Everyone's like OAM. It feels like it's like the knighthood of Australia, really, isn't it?
A little bit, yeah.
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 Okay.
Highest jump of 6 meters and 6 centimeters. Now, if you just picture Like picture a diving, like when you see like the full 10-meter diving
Yeah.
board, and they've got the options below, like the 1, the 3, the 5. Like
Yeah.
it's halfway between pretty much halfway. It's so high.
Yeah.
Mm.
What do you reckon you could vault now?
Oh, it's a real with how much time question.
Okay.
I
Like cold, just walk up.
cold. I went to the US family trip earlier in the year, and I was there with one of my really good mates, Steve Lewis, who was the British record holder in the pole vault. We've both got kids roughly the same age, and so we took our friends to our mate's house, Dean Starkey, who was a world championship medalist in the 90s, and he's got a pole vault ranch. So, wow, this place is amazing. So Dean, this is on like the outskirts of Phoenix in Arizona. But we took our kids there to like train, like they all went there and had a session with some of the coaches that coach for Dean.
Your kids are pole vaulters?
They started doing it a little bit, yeah.
Amazing. Wow.
Yeah, just for fun, just a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were doing a session, and then Steve sort of wandered off to the shed where all the poles are kept and sort of started looking at a few and pulled one out, and I was like, I can see where this is going. And then all of a sudden, like the kids were like pushed off the pole vault mat, and all of a sudden me and Steve were taking jumps. I don't know. I think we jumped like maybe 4 meters, something like that, which is
Still
pretty
bloody high.
which is pretty all right. But we were worse for wear the next day.
You felt it.
Yeah.
So 606 would have you currently as the 4th best height in the history of pole vaulting.
Still now?
Yeah, I think equal fourth.
Equal 4th.
Yes.
And I mean, if you look at the world record holder, Mondo Duplantis, I think he's the 3rd because I'm not sure he's a human being.
No,
No.
there's something inhuman about
Yeah.
how he does it. It looks like it looks like he's human. It's just like they turn the gravity down a little bit when he pole
Something's happening.
vaults.
Something's
Yeah.
happening.
Is he a
It's just-
current?
Yeah, he's
I'm
a
not
current
across.
world record.
He's
He's-
current. Okay.
Oh, if anyone wants to go on just YouTube Mondo Duplantis pole vault, he's 23 years old now. He's still so
wow.
young.
Broken
He's
his own record 7 times.
Oh my god.
He's jumped 623. It's phenomenal what he
623.
does. It's unbelievable. It's not even a number that we considered when I was jumping. Like it's just huge.
He looks so human. I reckon there's something. I think he might be some kind of robot or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's possible.
No, it's probably a fair assumption.
Yeah. That's the only possible answer.
Anyway,
Some sort of robot. There's someone who understands technology. He's probably some sort of robot or something.
so Steve Hooker is one of the greatest of all time at, I think, the coolest sport in the world. I think pole vault is just like
it is so cool. Yeah, you're right.
oh, like I remember going to watch there's a meet last year. It's called Zatopek. It's like an us meet basically in Melbourne. And we took the kids down, never been to that kind of thing before. And I was like, they'll be so bored. And there's pole vault. I didn't know there's going to be pole vault. And they were captivated. They're like, are those people flying? Like, what's happening here?
It seems like a sport that was born out of like a dare. you know, like it seems like a sport where someone once said, like at an office Christmas party, it was like, "Can you get over that wall?" It's like, "Yeah, maybe that light pole." It's like, "Yeah, all right, give it a go." And then pole vaulting.
I think you're right. I was captivated by it the same way though. That like experience your kids had was exactly the same for me. I remember it was the Melbourne Track Classic back in like the 90s, back in Olympic Park. And anyone that did school athletics in Victoria, this is a bit niche, but anyone that did, you ended up there at some point doing some school athletics. Yeah, I know you did, Hugh. Heard about it, yep.
Yeah.
And they had the top tier of the stand at Olympic Park, like a few seats at the bottom, but most of the seats up the top. And I remember sitting up there one time and James Miller and Simon Arkell were the 2 best Australian pole vaulters, and they had this amazing competition. And I can't tell you anything else that happened that night. I was like 10, 12, something like that. And I just watched these 2 guys pole vault, and I was obsessed after that.
At
Just
10
loved
years
it.
old?
Yeah.
Wow.
Took 5 more years before I was able to take a jump, but it was just, it absorbed me. I loved it. Same experience.
This feels like a really. I feel like I'm about to ask a question that everyone would ask you. But were you terrified the first time you did a pole vault?
Oh, that's a good question.
Great.
It is a common question, but it's a good question.
Yeah.
And I think depending on where you do it for the first time, you may be. I was very lucky. I had an amazing coach for my first coach. So my first coach was Mark Stewart. I was at a Box Hill Athletics Club right nearby where I grew up. And he had coached so many people that he just had the formula for getting you started. So my first session, you learn how to like hold the pole, and then you'll do a few take-ups planting into like a sand pit, because you're normally planting into this like metal box. it's very rigid and feels a bit dangerous. So if you plant into the sand, it kind of doesn't matter where your pole lands, but it still kind of behaves the same way. So you do that, and then you do 2-step jumps on over a bar onto a mat, and that's your first session. Like you learn 2 steps, and then once you kind of got that clocked, which is you kind of then work backwards. So your last 2 steps are just practicing your plant and jumping, and then you can start learning how to lower the pole and run faster and bend a pole and do all that sort of stuff. But that takes months.
Hang on, what's the record holder's name? The current legend?
Mondo Duplantis.
And you plant the pole.
Yeah, and Mondo's like means world. It's like he's got the most amazing name for pole
World
vaulting.
planter.
Yeah,
World
Does
planter.
do mean pole?
World pole planter.
It's like there's so many of those names that are like Jamie Whincup in like motorsport. Like of course he wins the cup.
Yeah,
like he was made for it.
Is that nominative determinism?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's a great thing.
like-
my dad used to get like a sort of physio massage years and years ago each week, and the guy who did it, his name was Ron Armstrong, and eventually I said to my dad, "Isn't it funny that Ron's name is Ron Armstrong?" And he's like, "Why?" I was like, "What do you mean, why? It's all I've been thinking about for years."
That's all you've been thinking
Yeah,
about.
it's everything. Yeah.
This is a really special episode, which we're doing for I guess for a cause. Steve and I have teamed up with a couple other guys, and we've got a project we're working on, which we want to share today. We're very excited about. We're raising funds for. We'll talk about it a bit later on, but we're excited about this. Lululemon are sponsoring this episode, and all the funds are going to charity, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But before, well, actually, there's one thing I wanted to. Did you when Steve walked in today? Were you guys in awe? I am obsessed with the way Steve moves his body. Did you?
Obsessed is a strong word. Obsessed suggests interest when he's not around.
Yeah, that's there.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, that's there.
Googling.
Strong interest.
Let's have a look at Google search history.
It's okay. Don't need
Steve
to-
Hooker body. Moving.
And it's just the way it moves, and it's just so efficient and springy and nice. And
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, it didn't immediately come to mind, not because I'm dissatisfied with the way your body moves, just because it didn't pop to my brain. Yeah.
Well, let's watch it when he leaves. Let's watch.
Sounds
him.
creepy.
I'm gonna be real comfortable with this. That's
I mean, to be honest, the first thing that came to mind when you walked in was like, I think, because when I think of you, other than pole vaulting, I think of Rove, not Rove the person, but Rove the show. Because when I was on Rove, I feel like that's when that would have been around. 2008, 2009, when you were pole vaulting and winning. You came on Rove a few times.
I came on once right
Was it
after
once?
right after the Olympics in 2008.
I must have been there.
You 100% were.
Yeah.
You did the voiceover introduction,
That's right.
and it was honestly like one of the craziest, wildest, best nights ever. Do you remember the episode?
Which one? What was the
Was
episode?
Will Ferrell on that?
It was Will
it
Ferrell
was
and John
that-
C. Reilly.
That's right. That was actually one of my favourite nights as well.
It was
I can't believe you were there
like
that night.
the best. So I think how that all came about for me on my side was I won my gold medal
In Beijing.
in Beijing very late at night. And then the next day was my medal ceremony. And so I'm on a little golf buggy. They're kind of driving me underneath the stadium. And next to me is the media person from the Australian Olympic Committee and Steve Waugh, who was one of the athlete liaisons. And he'd been with the athletics team. So we'd had
What was he doing there?
they
The last person I expected you to say.
Steve Waugh was there.
Hang on, what did he do? Just
So
play
he's
back
so,
cricket?
just was there for any advice about performance or whatever. There was 4 athlete liaisons on the team. He was
Yep.
the one that was with athletics.
Just in case Curtly Ambrose turns up, what you do?
Yeah, correct. If anyone's bowling bounces at you like a good defensive maneuver.
Just wear him, mate.
And so we're on that buggy, and the media guy said, "Oh, they want you to do Rove," and I was like, "Oh my god, I've made it! This is it!" And I remember having this like specific thought on that day, which is like, life's going to be pretty easy from here on out.
Wow, yeah.
You know that thought?
Yes.
Like, oh yeah, I made it. And this is the moment where everyone gets to. And after that, then like they're kind of done. They've done that one thing that's going to make life easy.
All right, just like, I'm sitting in a cart with Steve Waugh, won a gold medal, and then I'm going to be on Rove. Now I've made it.
I think that was the thing. That was it. Like, oh yeah, I've cracked it. Rove was the sort of the benchmark at that point in time, I think.
My version of that is slightly different. It was when I got cast in a Pepsi ad when I was 15. Yeah. I thought like I got paid $2,000 and I was like, well, if I can get one of these every week, I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
I didn't get one of those every week. Yeah.
In hindsight, that was ridiculous. It just meant I look back and I'm like, that was the moment when life stopped being really easy and simple and carefree and it got complicated. Like things
Really?
open up, but it's like, it's actually the moment where it wasn't as within your control or like all this other
Literally
stuff.
being on Rove was that.
Well, that moment, you know, like
Yeah.
that was the moment, like winning the gold medal, and then
yeah.
not necessarily the Rove thing, but that was just part of
Gotcha,
the
yeah.
whole thing. And yeah, you realize after that, looking back, you're like, oh, okay, all of a sudden there's all this other stuff that you got to factor in to your thinking and all these other. Up until then, it was like be the best pole vaulter you can be, and the outcome's going to be there. And then there's all this stuff that runs in parallel to it, which never existed before.
So I want to get to the ups and downs of your the journey you've been on since is really fascinating, and the ups and downs. I want to talk about the courage, the moment of courage in pole vaulting where you commit. There's a moment where you flip yourself upside down and jump backwards as high as you can. I want to talk about that, and then what happens when that courage isn't there as well. Quickly, I want to talk about how we know each other as well. So it's just a great, I think it's a great story. So we went to primary school together. I was 2 years above you at Greythorn Primary School. I remember in grade 3, I qualified for this district athletics, and I pretty much did in a pair of gumboots, I think, so I didn't really have any shoes to run in. And that's my memory anyway. And then Dad said, well, we should get you some spikes. And I was like, well, this is the greatest moment of my life. And he said, well, call Bill. Bill will know where to get them. Bill is Steve's dad. So Bill's 4-time Australian 800-metre champion.
Yeah.
And Steve's mum is Erica Hooker, who went to Munich with a 72 games. Is that right?
Yeah, in the
As a
long jump.
jumper. Yep.
The Munich games. That was the terrorist.
She was 18 when she was there.
Jeez.
Yeah, heavy for her. Yeah.
Wow.
And so Dad was like, we'll call Bill. And I was like, oh, it's exciting. Because I was just, whenever I saw your parents, I was just in awe that there's Olympians and, runners. Anyway, so your dad said, yep, there's an op shop near Union Road. And he said, we'll go there. Apparently they had this basket where they had
Sports Depot.
No, that's a different one. That's the Sports Depot where we graduated up to those.
Yeah.
But you and I started at an op shop. So I went to get my first ever running spikes. I've never felt excitement like this. And you were there, and your dad got you a pair as well. You would have been like 7, I think. But they just found these 2 kids' pairs of spikes that were so old. They would have been like 10 years old when we got them. And mine were like 3 sizes too big. I reckon yours were 4 sizes too big. We're like, done, that'll do. So we got our first ever
I
pair
can
of
still
spikes
see
together.
them in my mind's eye. Yeah.
God, I do miss the shopping before the internet.
Yeah.
You know,
You
where
don't know
it's
what
like,
you're going to get.
yeah, but also you ask friends, where did you get the spikes? It's like, oh, you've got to go to Sports Haven in, whatever road. It's like, okay, we've got to go to
Joe there will look after you.
You go to the sports shop.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is an op shop, just this small basket of running spikes, which Bill knew about. We got our spikes together. And then, that was sort of like, that's how I guess the families became quite close because Josh, you were best friends with Steve's sister, Katie.
My first ever girlfriend.
There you go.
I wasn't going to bring it up, but I think you had a primary school marriage, didn't you? You got married.
Wife, I should have said.
Yeah.
Sorry, not girlfriend, wife.
Yeah. Oh,
sorry, I
God.
undersold Katie. I
So
think we were-
Sophie's your second wife.
technically, yeah.
Yeah.
Katie and I think we were 3. It was pre-primary
It was
school.
a
It's like
big
4 years
deal
old.
back
Hang on.
then. Yeah.
You were 3 years old when you got married.
Yeah, I think we were married at childcare or something.
Kinder
Or
maybe,
kindergarten, like not by the teachers, but
Was that a tough divorce? How did
it was heartbreaking.
yeah.
Yeah, but Katie moved on to better things, I think.
Who got to keep the snacks?
It's pre-la snack.
We had to split
pre-la
them.
snack.
Had to split them.
Okay.
Yeah, it probably was pre-la snack.
Probably splitting bags of Ovaltinis or something.
Yeah, and mammy noodles. Katie and I were best mates and are still really close friends. Katie was at
Which is wonderful. It's
so good. Yeah, I was just thinking then about at my second wedding to Sophie. On the table that we were on, it was sort of myself and Sophie and the grooms and bridesmaids and my sister, and then next to my sister our sister was Katie. Like she's still a really close
nice.
friend, and she's
Awkward
my oldest.
as well, sitting next to you, having your
A little
ex-wife
awkward,
2
but
seats away.
luckily Katie's a very kind, accepting person. But no, she's my oldest friend, which it's really special. Yeah.
And your sister Georgia is my oldest friend. Which
Yes, housemates.
Yeah,
Old
yeah.
housemates.
So,
really?
so we were best mates in primary school, kinder, inseparable, and went through primary school together, and then I guess drifted a bit during high school, but like found each other again as housemates after. And funnily enough, the third housemate in our house was BJ, Brennan Cole, who was part of the project that Hugh and I are working on right now. So that's that whole thing closing out. Yeah.
Okay.
And then, of course, one of my greatest presents I've ever received was from you, Steve.
Do I tell it?
You maybe, yeah, it may be better coming from you.
The gold medal.
Yeah, so I was obsessed with you a little bit. Obviously, being really great mates with Georgia, we would hang out. I'd come over to the house and play. And I do remember on more than one occasion, I'd upset George by wanting to play with Hugh. So Hugh was like an amazing athlete at school, and you know your primary school is your entire world. And 2 years older, and I remember when he was graduating in grade 6, I was like, never going to see him again. This is like, he's gone. He's going to be out of my life. I'm never going to see him again. And it was right in like peak Jordan time. So Air Jordan was everything. And so I went and bought a T-shirt, and I went and bought a bunch of puff paint. You remember that stuff that you used to be able to get?
Yeah.
Like
Come in like a little like tube, looks like, yeah.
Yep.
And then I made an Air Huey T-shirt.
Wow.
And I had my number on as well, number 22
That's
from
right.
Ball and Blazers
Wow.
basketball. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Delivered it at the
gave
door.
that to Hugh. Yeah, I think I missed him on his last day of school, so I had
So
to
you
go
were in
around
grade
to his
4?
house. I was in grade 4.
Wow.
It was
That is
classic
one of the
mode.
sweetest things I've ever heard.
Yeah,
He was so 1992, like come over on his bike, dumped it out in the front garden, came in, gave me my T-shirt.
I was so
Probably shot
nervous. I
hoops
was
for a
so
bit.
shy about giving this, but I don't know why. I don't
I'll
know.
never forget it. It was so special. It
Looking
really
back,
was.
I'm like, yeah, I really wanted to do it. Like, it had a big impact on me, but you know, you can want to do those things. I can't believe I did it though. Like looking back,
Oh, it's so good. It was so good for
You'd still have it, obviously.
Yeah.
It means
Still
so
wear
much
it.
to
I
you.
still wear it. It's tight. Anyway, so I guess that's the background.
so there's a bit of background here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
God, there's so much background. There's so much connection. I literally didn't know the three of you had this much history until just before we started.
Yeah, well, so much love for the Hooker
Yeah,
family.
so
Just
much.
like they're such great people. So we've heard about all the incredible stuff that you achieved, and I want to hear the journey you've sort of been on through your vaulting as well, because there was a stage where you actually couldn't. It was like that was your full-time profession. You're a pole vaulter, and all of a sudden you just couldn't do it. I'm keen to hear about that. I'm keen to hear about what it was like standing on the podium at Beijing, if you're comfortable with that, obviously, and then life after being the best in the world.
Amazing. I'm a long time listener of this. I've been following this podcast for a long time, so you kind of know what you're getting yourself into coming in here. And I think there's a bit in how like starting pole vault that was really meaningful for me in my life. I think the very beginning.
Yeah.
And then it kind of flows through to getting through some tough times. And so the kind of thing I want to go back to is like, and we've touched on this in the lead in, we had the most amazing, certainly my experience, and I believe it was yours as well, like primary school experience, like feeling really connected to the school, having lots of opportunity. It was like a really neighborhood kind of vibe there, feeling really safe, lots of friends, all that sort of stuff. And that kind of transitioned for me to my first couple of years of high school, lots of mates, all that sort of stuff. Something happened with me in like year 9, I think it was. And it's just like a bit of a microcosm of how school can be. And it's crazy to talk about. I can't even believe I'm going to say it. I was in this class, and it changed my whole schooling experience. It's like one moment in one class. I was in home economics. I think it was in year 9. And I dropped something, went down to pick it up and sat up. And as soon as I'd done that, someone from the other room yelled out, "Steve just looked up this person's dress." Like, we're in year 9. This is like a crazy thing to say, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, where'd that come from? And the person that he'd said it about was my mate's girlfriend. And I was like, what are you talking about? Just pick something up. And as soon as you protest, you look guilty.
Yeah.
And then high school does its thing. And all of a sudden, everyone thinks that this is something that's happened. And pretty quickly, I went from having a kind of group of mates to like being quite alone at school
Just from that.
off the back of this.
Jeez.
And in my mind, it's off the back of this, but I don't know if I was on the outer with this group of friends at that point of time and it was an excuse or whatever it was. But in like my recollection of how it went, it was kind of that. And then sort of from having like really close friends, feeling really like supported by my mates in primary school and the start of high school, all of a sudden it just like literally changed overnight.
Oh my God.
From this thing that was not a thing. And I felt like just so ripped off by it.
Yeah.
And then really bloody lonely, like at school.
You're essentially like cancelled.
Yeah, I got
At high
cancelled.
school.
Yeah, I got high school
Yeah.
cancelled. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
really good way
Wow.
of looking at it. And I had a moment just a couple of months ago where I looked back and it was the image of me on a particular day when all of that kind of happened was I could tell that for some reason that version of me was what drove a lot of stuff. That's like
So
that
which version of you? Sorry?
the person who'd just been like left alone.
Okay. Yeah.
Like prove something, prove people wrong, whatever it might be. There's like a bit of that that's going to hang around with me forever, I think, because it was like, I don't know, 14, 15. It's like a
Pretty formative.
pivotal part
Yeah.
of your life.
Did your parents notice at that stage that you were? Did your family notice a change in you? Do you think?
They did, which I didn't know. But like later, my mum said, like, oh, I thought you were on drugs for like a period of your high school. And I was like, oh, no, I was just, I think, sad. Like I would just like find myself, I don't know, like, you know, like you're a teenager, I was just sitting in the hallway just thinking about things.
Oh, it's
And you know, your
heartbreaking.
parents would like look at you and probably say, oh, like there's something wrong with him. Like what could it be? Because I wouldn't have opened up to them about like losing all my mates or
Mhm.
anything like that. That's the bad side of it. Like school was pretty lonely, but relatively soon after that happening, I plucked up the courage to ask Mark, my first coach, if I could try pole vault. So I'd been watching Emma George, who was the world record holder for the women in the 90s, pole vault at Box Hill Athletics Club. And after a period of time, I plucked up the courage to ask him if I could give it a go. And then all of a sudden, I had my first training session, which I spoke about. And I was like, went from doing athletics like a day a week and maybe competing on the weekend to like training with this group of amazing athletes and people like 5-6 days a week. And all of a sudden I had this like bunch of people that I was around. I had this thing that gave me purpose and energy. And all of a sudden, like, even though like 6 or 7 hours a day at school were pretty like shitty and lonely, I had this thing that after school I would just go and I loved it. Like year 10, year 11, I'd wake up, go to school. I'd have to pack everything for school. And after school, I'd walk to school, do my day of school. As soon as the bell went at 3:20, I'd run to my locker, get all my stuff, pack it up, throw it on my back, and then run, you know, Bourne High School, which is where I went to school, run across Macleay Park, which is like there's this park that's between the school and where the bus stop would be. And I would sprint. And I think I would catch the 202 bus, which funnily enough, I drove behind a 202 bus on the way here today. It drives down Johnson Street. And catch the early bus so I could get to training on time. I'd train for 2.5 hours, something like that. My dad would pick me up. I would go and then clean the bakery at Camberwell's Safeway, I think it was at the time, for like 3 hours. And I'd get home like 10 o'clock at night and that would be my day.
Wow.
This story, that story it's just so heartbreaking, but it does. And I can't think of an actual example from school, from my experience, but it feels like such a common story, not that exact
It is.
example
Something
of it.
happens and it just completely.
Yeah.
It defines you.
Something
And-
so innocuous.
yeah. Yeah.
I
And
can
it-
think
Yeah,
of so many
I can
examples.
think of so many.
Yeah.
But that are not my story, but just of kids that like on their
Yeah.
first day did something.
yeah.
And then they've got that, and then that nickname is just locked to them for the rest of their time at
And they're
school,
under.
and they can't escape it, no matter
Cool.
what they do.
Yeah.
It's such a
Yeah.
brutal environment
Yeah.
because all you want to be is on the other side of that.
Mm-hmm.
And you
Yeah.
can see why people jump to the other side and
Mm.
don't want to like stand up or say, oh, maybe not. Maybe we should think about it because they don't want to also be like
Yeah, you
pushed,
don't wanna be a
pushed out of the
target.
group as well. So you can understand it. We're young and especially boys, like we're so emotionally immature at that age. It's hard to, I guess, have a balanced view. So I understand how it can happen.
But the kind of from my point of view, the obvious question is, would you have done pole vault without that event?
Yeah, I would have.
You
I
would
think
have,
I think
okay.
I would have, but my life would have been really different. Like, I don't know if it would have been as big a part of my life necessarily.
Throwing yourself into it as much.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it became my friendship group. They became like my mates. Like they were rock solid. We knew everything about each other. We would travel together. Like it was like almost like university kind of friends. You know the difference between like a high school friend and a
Yep.
uni friend? It was like I had university friends when I was going through that part of my life. A lot of them were older.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so there was a bit more maturity in the kind of friendship, and we were all doing this thing together that galvanized us as well. So, that was amazing for me, and it got me really focused and driven. And I got pretty good pretty quickly at that sport. So took it up when I was 15. By the time I was 17, 18, I qualified for the World Junior Championship, so the under 20 World Championships. Got to leave Australia for the first time, went to Santiago, Chile, and I jumped 5 meters 20, which was sort of equal third, but I had a few more misses one more miss than the guy who came third, and I came fourth on a count back. And I sort of left there, and I just sort of been lucky enough to go to the Sydney Olympics and watch a number of events there, and then go and compete in this thing a couple of months afterwards. And I was like, I am on here. Like, this is 2004. I'm on the trajectory. Like, I'm the fourth best guy under 20 in the world. Like, I can do this. I can see the pathway.
So I remember I was in India watching you in Beijing, as in I was in a hotel room watching on this tiny little television.
I was going to say Beijing is not in India. No.
Got him out in a lie. I was in Beijing, India, loving it. At the Olympic.
I was in a tiny hotel room with the smallest TV. Like, honestly, it was the size of like a tennis ball almost. And I was watching you win the gold medal. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I wasn't sure when you started pole vaulting back then, but it would have been like, so you were 15 at the time.
Yeah,
so,
it was like 98. Yeah, something like that.
So you've been pole vaulting for, I mean, you've spent nearly a decade. Imagine like that's your goal to win an Olympic gold. What does that feel like when you win Olympic gold?
The feeling of winning gold was, there's a couple of parts to it. The first bit is the process. So the jump itself, I guess, like that was, it's kind of unique event in that like there's this 4 seconds, which was me doing the thing that meant I won. Like there's a lot of lead up to that. You had to be in the position to win. But in the competition, there'd been lots of misses. There was only 2 guys left in the competition when the bar went to 5 meters 90, myself and a Russian guy, Yevgeny Lukyanenko. And he was ahead of me in the order. We'd both missed our first 2 attempts at 5 meters 90. Then he missed his 3rd attempt. And that meant I had this moment where like, that's my jump to win. And it is genuinely, it's the moment I'd been preparing for a long time, but really, I think visualizing properly for 12 months. Like that exact moment, I had like my screensaver on my laptop was a picture of the bird's nest. So I knew exactly what the bird's nest, that iconic stadium in Beijing, looked like. I'd superimposed a track inside that. I know on that track, we generally jump on the D. That's the kind of end of the soccer pitch. Mm-hmm. And we generally run, they don't like having the pole vault mats near where the 100 meters start. So you generally run towards the 200 meter start. And so I had that kind of like set up in my mind, and I had taken so many jumps in this like imaginary stadium in my mind. And up until that point in the competition on the day, I'd been jumping really bad. Like all of my clearances were ugly. Like I wasn't feeling good. I was feeling bad on the runway. My legs were feeling heavy. My second miss at 5 meters 90 was my first really, really good jump. So sometimes in pole vault, you can have a jump that's too good for the pole that you're on. So you kind of crush it and your high point happens behind the bar rather than happening directly above it.
You peak too early.
Too late. Yeah. So you kind of roll the pole through too deep and you land like quite deep in the mats. And what you need is a stiffer pole that's going to stand you up a bit earlier on the jump.
So you change poles, do you?
So at that point, you're like, all right, next pole, same jump, and I've got this.
Are these your poles that you're bringing with you?
Yeah. You kind of take your set.
You used to
with
take
you.
him on the bus with him to Box Hill.
Do they all come apart?
That
Really?
didn't happen. No,
Okay. On the 202.
They have got on buses around Europe. Like you have to sort of squeeze them through the door and they lay in the middle aisle of the bus. They've been strapped to the side of taxis. Traveling with poles is a whole nother episode. And so I knew the pole that I was going to, that's a good enough pole to jump this. I jumped 6 meters on that pole earlier. It's good enough to jump 590. But more importantly, I'd done a good jump. Like it was the first time I'd run down the runway and felt really good on that second attempt. So I made my changes, set my run up, knew that this was my jump to win. And at that moment, it went from being the hardest competition I'd ever done, like the most like stressful, just hanging in there, really fighting, gritting my teeth, to all of a sudden like out of body experience. Just like
what is in that jump was the
for
moment
third attempt. Well, after Yevgeny had missed.
He'd missed his third jump.
He's missed his third, and I had this moment. I'm like, all right, this is it. And like as soon as I had that thought, everything just kind of started happening by itself. Like I'm kind of just, you got the same routine before each jump. Prepare your grip, get the pole right. And it was a new pole, so I had to like make sure that was all my grip on that was really good. Walk over to your mark on the runway, and it literally, I look back at it and it looks like it felt. There was zero hesitation at any point. So as soon as I'm on the mark, and then I lean back, take my first step, and start running. And from the first step, it was full pressure on the run. Everything felt right. And as soon as I planted, the pole just moved easy. It didn't feel like I was fighting against it like I had been for the whole day. And then like that moment, like on a good jump, often halfway down the run up, you're like, this feels good. On that jump, it felt like that. But then as soon as I was off the ground, you just know everything's in the right place. Like, you know, you're sort of inverting at the right distance from the bar. You can kind of feel it all. And it's just at that point, just don't stuff this up. Like, it's like weight is what you sort of think, because all you can do is drop your feet a bit early and that might knock the bar off. So you've got to wait until you get kind of lifted by the pole, and then not do anything silly with your hands when you're like hovering over the bar like that. And that, it literally was like, I didn't do it. It was like a jump I'd rehearsed so many times in my mind that it literally took care of itself. The run down the runway took care of itself, the rhythm of the jump, the inversion, the whole jump. And then that was that. And that was the outcome of just thinking about it endlessly for 12 months.
And as soon as you're over,
and I got a lucky event, right? Because it's rare when you can think about that, because so many other sports, like team sports, there's strategies and tactics and different scenarios you might be in. My scenario is pretty straightforward. The bar is going to be about 6 meters on this day in this venue. If you jump it, you win.
so your head is really the competitor.
Yeah, your opposition take jumps in between your
Of
jumps,
course,
but you're not competing with them. You're competing the bar.
Yeah. So
That was awesome to listen to, by
it's
the way.
fascinating.
That was
So how much of that is replicatable in terms of like, there must be so many variables in terms of like your preparation, the conditions on the day, just to get to a jump that is like you've probably at that point in your life, the most important jump of your life. Literally, I have to jump over that pole. If I can jump over that pole right now, that bar, then I win a gold medal. Doesn't sound like you were thinking about that though. You were just like, oh no, I'm locked in. It's like you were in flow or something.
It was full flow. Yeah, I mean, it's for anyone that's you can experience doing little things, gardening, all that sort of stuff. Just you're not thinking about what my hands are doing; they're just doing what they're doing. Like manual labor is amazing for it. Like you just get into a job and your body figures it out.
Yeah,
it was 100% that, but it was at a deeper level than anything I'd ever experienced. Just because I was so ready. Like it was exactly clear in my mind. Like to explain how I'd visualize it, it's probably worthwhile. Like I could visualize standing on the runway, first person perspective, running down the runway, what that rhythm would look like and what the mats would look like and what planting the pole in front of my face would look like. I would then visualize it from like a third person perspective. I would sit where my coach would be sitting in the grandstand, because that's whenever I watch videos back of my jumps, it's the videos he takes of me from side on. And so I would visualize it from that perspective and see what that jump would look like. And no one had really coached me into this, but I just remember every night I'd be lying in bed. I had a bad shoulder in 2008, so I was often lying on the floor. And just like before sleeping each night, I would just see these jumps go over and over in my head, just perfect jumps in that arena, just going over and over.
I've just sort of realized that probably the future of training, particularly like track and field seems the most likely that I can think of, like individual sports. But once like AR glasses become smaller and lighter, you'll literally be able to, it'll look like you're running in the bird's nest in Beijing.
Oh yeah.
When you're training, you'll literally be able to like place that environment around you, and it'll become so comfortable to you by the time you actually get there.
Yeah, and a lot of teams do this sort of stuff now. So they'll set up, the AFL teams have replicas of the MCG that they train on.
Yeah.
Just so it all feels more familiar, not having to like adjust. It's the real actual dimensions of that. So it's so powerful, that kind of, especially when it's a big moment, and this applies to anything in your life. So I take this elsewhere with me now. Just getting ready for it mentally and getting ready for a few different scenarios that might happen when you're there, and visualizing and walking through and what might be the things that go wrong and how might I deal with those at the time, and just your few little rules that are going to be your kind of guiding light of how I'll get through this with success. Like how am I going to win on that day?
So you land on the mat and you know you've won the gold medal. So how does that feel to you, and how does the next 24 hours of your life feel to, if you're comfortable?
Yeah. So the next,
Probably looking for Steve Waugh. Celebrate with him.
Raise the pole.
Looking for someone to like rub my head up the bag of green or something. I don't know. Yeah, there's something there. I like that. So immediately, like amazing. Like you run a lap of the bird's nest, and it's just like that's the euphoria. But then even by the time I'd got to my interview, like my long-term manager, who's now passed, Maury Plant, was there. He runs the media zone for the Australian media, or the BBC maybe he was at the time.
Plant.
Maury
A lot of
Plant.
plant names
There was a lot of
in
planting.
the sport with that you plant a pole. Sorry. Yeah.
Maury he'd been my meat manager, so he put me into all my competitions. Like in the lead up, he's a big part of my preparation, and he was there, and he's sort of the first person that I sort of hugged. And as soon as I did that, I was just like cooked. I'd been out there for like 4 or 5 hours. I was exhausted, and I think even in my interview is fairly lackluster. Like my Channel 7 interview afterwards is fairly lackluster because I was just shattered. I was just so tired and so exhausted.
We're going to definitely put a link in the show notes to this jump and then also your interview if we can find it.
Yeah, amazing. And then I think after that, the overwhelming feeling, and I believe having spoken to a number of people who've won gold medals when they had an expectation on themselves, was relief. Like just relief and exhaustion because you've been carrying this one moment for so long.
Did you have an expectation of what it was going to feel like, whether it was going to feel like relief or you just didn't get that far?
Hadn't thought.
Yeah.
I think you've got a kind of somewhat of an expectation because you would expect how it would feel for somebody else.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about how it would feel for me.
Yeah. Okay.
In any meaningful way. I don't think nothing beyond the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like literally it was just that. And then I don't know what happens after that. That's the kind of next chapter, which I got no control over.
And was it cool that the medal presentation ceremony wasn't until the next day, so you could really just like have something to look forward to, like to draw it out, like the excitement of having a gold medal. So you didn't actually get it straight away.
Yeah. So that we finished late. So we finished like after midnight. By the time we finished, there was not many people left in the stadium. Like it was quite late at night in Beijing. And so that medal presentation was the next day. And one of the common questions is like, what was it like to get your medal? And for me, it was like a very mixed day. We'd had something happen in our family sort of 5 days before my final, and no one told me. So I the day after I won, my mum called me up and she said, "Look, this is what's happened. Someone was having a really hard time in our family, and we couldn't let you know in the lead up." And so, and for me, I was like on the podium and in the lead up to it, apart from, on the way out to getting my medal, being told I was going to be on Rove, which was wonderful. When I was up there, that was my main thought, was about this other person in my life that was having a really, really, really shocking time, and that I felt an element of responsibility for it as well, because I don't know, when that's happening, like it's not just my life, but lots of people around me are like heavily invested, as they should be, because they've been a huge part of that journey, and everyone's focused on it. And there was, someone that really struggled through that, and so that was mainly what I was thinking about when I was up there, and then there was ongoing kind of working through all of that once I got home as well. So you sort of you spend half your day celebrating, and then spend half your day trying to be with this person who's not having a great time.
So I'm assuming, just the way you described it, I'm assuming you don't want to talk about who it was or what.
Yeah, it's
what
their
it was.
stuff.
Yeah. No, totally fine. Because I know, not to your extent, but I do know you're working up to a certain event or a thing. You're so focused on this one event, and I talk about this a lot, and because I've gone through it a lot and experienced it, and I'm just interested about it. But the impact that success or like focus and dedication has on your relationships. Did you find, this isn't the truth for everyone, but did you find that in that period of like utter dedication and complete like focus on getting a gold medal and being the best pole vaulter you can be, how were your relationships at that time?
They'd really dropped off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And while it's going good, you don't really realize.
No.
Because it's so busy around you. And certainly from that period, 2008 till 2010, like I I nearly didn't lose a competition, like from 2008 till the end of 2009. And it was just going so well. Life was moving so fast that I kind of didn't realize that all of a sudden all these relationships were dropping away in terms of like how meaningful they were.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that was I was away from my family. Like I was living in Perth and they were all in Melbourne. But even part of it was in the training environment I was in over in Perth. Like when I first moved over there, two of my best mates were training with me. So it felt quite similar, like that collegiate training environment that I'd had in Melbourne. And then really quickly, because that was a high performance training environment over there, not a club environment, when their careers weren't going as well as they had previously been, they slowly disappeared. And I ended up being the only one there left.
Mm-hmm.
And with the real measure of success just being your results. So part of it is you start feeling a little bit of guilt when things aren't going great at home or with people in your family. And then the other part is you just don't have that kind of first person support with you in that environment with people who really understand what's going on, which was the complete contrast for, I had periods of time where it really didn't go that well when I was younger, but around me I had my family, I had training partners, and your performance, whilst important because it's a sport, was not the number one measure by which people sort of valued you. Whereas in this environment, 100% was it's all or nothing on that. And then all of a sudden, all these my mates that I've been training with were gone. And then when my performance started to drop off, which sort of started happening during the 2010 season and was really bad in 2011, like that's when you're just like, what's going on here? Like took a long time to build up, and then all of the value that you sort of see in yourself through no fault of your own or without design, but was sort of all of a sudden around this version of you who just like could win big competitions.
Yeah.
But in retrospect, what I've been working towards was relatively shallow. Like it was win that Olympic gold medal. That's going to be enough. And it's the standard, it's never enough thing. Like, okay, but what if you win all of them? No one's done that before. Like no one's held them all at the same time. So if you do that, that's going to be enough. And then when I had it, I was like, okay, the logic, then it's kind of like, then what? Like your brain naturally goes, okay, well, that's done. Like as an athlete, you're like, what's next?
Yeah.
What's next? And so for me, I was like, rather than like maybe looking a bit deeper into how I was attacking my goals, I was just like, well, it's got to be the world record then. If I just jump the world record now, then that'll be everything. That's literally everything, and that's probably going to be enough. And so I kind of set on this path to break the world record and had a good plan, I thought, for how I could do that. And then sort of progressively through 2010, my body started to break down a little bit. My left knee, my takeoff leg started wearing out a little bit. Had like patellar tendinopathy, jumper's knee. By the end of the year, I was starting to struggle with confidence. And Hugh, you asked a question. You said you want to talk about that moment of confidence it takes to take off. I think you said about get upside down. For me, that's not the scary moment. So the scary moment in a jump is the moment of commitment to the jump. So you run down the runway and there's a certain point in time where you've got to say, all right, I'm going to jump off the ground and hold onto this pole. And when you make that decision, like you've sort of played your cards and it's either going to go well or poorly. If you're a bit too close or a bit too far out, like it can go quite badly. If you don't plant your pole directly above your head, you're going to start flying sideways. Like it can be a bit scary. If you're particularly close and you've got a bad shoulder or a bad back or something like that, you're likely to aggravate that injury. So there's a big moment of commitment. And the more confident you are, like the kind of further down the runway, you feel like you're going to hit your marks and be able to take off with a lot of confidence. Like the jump from Beijing, like full confidence the whole way down the runway that everything was in the right place. As soon as you start doubting that, particularly with me, it gets really hard to commit to that jump at the end. And then all of a sudden tension starts getting into your body, which affects how you're moving. And then more and more through that 2010 season, particularly as my knee was a bit sore and I was trying to look after that, I started at that moment of commitment to let go of the pole. And so you'd run in at the moment when you're meant to plant and hold onto the pole, you'd let go and you kind of just run through onto the mats and roll through. And in a competition, that's a miss. It just counts as one of your 3 misses. And that kind of continued to progress. And this was the same thing I'd dealt with as a 20-year-old. I'd been through it once before. It took 2 years of sort of spiraling down to basically not being able to jump at all. So I told you about a 2-step drill that I do on my first training session. At some point in my 20s, I couldn't even do a 2-step drill and hold onto the pole. That's how stuck I was in my head at that moment of takeoff.
God.
And so this spiral started again, and I was like, I thought I conquered this. Like, I've done all this amazing stuff.
Terrifying.
The worst bit when you're at that level is you're like, freaking everyone's turning up here. Like, I was getting paid to go to competitions. People were like coming to watch me jump, and I'd like run through. And I'd be like, this is humiliating. Like, this is like the worst of the worst. And to the point, the very, very worst that it got was at the 2011 World Championships. In the qualifying round, I ran in 3 times and didn't take off the ground once in the qualifying round. And I was defending world champion at that competition.
And so, I mean, that is obviously, I mean, for you, that's really hard, but like, what's the response from everyone watching? What are they?
No one knows what to say.
No.
Yeah. I mean, what do you say?
Yeah.
You can't even, like, it's like literally like watching someone in a like motor race turn up and they can't even like turn the car on. It's like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
What's going on?
Yeah.
And were you able to process what was going on when you're in the thick of it?
I'd been through it before. And so I kind of knew what was going on, but it hadn't been quite the same. Like, there wasn't so much ego involved, I think. And it continued to get worse. Like, I was trying to get ready for the 2012 Olympics, and I was just kept running through. I couldn't jump. I was doing like the domestic season in February, and I was trying to compete and qualify. I still didn't have a qualifying height to actually go to the London Olympics and defend my gold. And I think like I could just scrap together 1 or 2 jumps, only on 3rd attempts, only when everything was absolutely on the line. And I was like, you've got to do it now or you won't do it. I would get a jump in, and sometimes they'd be good, sometimes they wouldn't, and they might keep me alive in a competition, but it would take all of that adrenaline, like every last bit of it, to actually get a jump up in a competition. Yeah. And the best I jumped was about 5 meters 20, like 70 centimeters below what I jumped in Beijing. Like miles out, not even in the realm of being elite in terms of the sport. And it was sort of halfway through that season, I was like, if this keeps going the way that it's going, I'm not going to make it. And so we stopped the season. Coach and I just agreed we're going to stop the season. And I think only at that point was I able to let the ego go and just sort of say, you just got to work from the base that you're at. So we just agreed every morning for like the next 2 months, I would go out to our training facility and I would do 2-step drills. And I would do 2-step drills until like they were like fluid and fluent, and like I didn't run through like a whole session of 2-step drills without running through for like 3 days in a row. And then we'd take that back to 4 steps. And then we'd take that back to 6 and then 8, and slowly kind of work these things back. And it was only that realization of, you're at the bottom, don't think you're the best. Like you actually got to, like, at that point I could start feeling like the improvement come back. Same feeling I had the first time I went through it, of having a small win at training and starting to feel good about a small win, no matter how insignificant it was. It would be the sort of thing I wouldn't have even cared about a year ago. But now, okay, I feel good about this, enjoy that small win. And then that sort of put me on a pathway, having gone through it before, to once I let go of the ego and was able to work off that base, to actually get back relatively quickly to a point where I could jump a reasonable height.
And when you say, just to clarify, when you say let go of the ego, do you mean like let go of the perception of yourself as this gold medalist champion?
Yeah, that's not helpful right now. Like if that's what I'm assessing myself against today, like, am I really being fair to myself? And so that, letting go of that and just sort of saying, all right, the only way to do this is just get back in the trenches and just do the things that got you there in the first place. You've done this before. And that's the beauty of, the good thing is you've been there before, you know the path, you know how to get there. The hard thing is saying, okay, I've got to go back to the very beginning of that.
I mean, that is such an impressive reflection and such an impressive thing to be able to do as well.
It is, and not wanting to move things on too quickly, but something extra impressive is coming up, which really, Steve, is what you're here to talk about.
Our project, our race, the big race we've got coming up.
What is happening? What is going on?
We could tell the story together.
Sure.
At this, well, like one word at a time.
It's like we can finish each other's
challenges.
So as everyone listens to this podcast now, I really like 400-meter running. That's my one of my great loves in my life.
Yeah.
And take it quite seriously, probably more serious than I should. So last year I go to the Murray Plant Classic. Ironically, as you just mentioned Murray before. Fred Curley's there, who's the...
This is a track meet, by the way, for people who don't know what the Murray Plant Classic is. It's not like a best of record.
Yeah, okay.
It's a track meet That's at Lakeside Stadium at Albert Park, the kind of premier athletics venue, and they get 5,000 people, probably there or thereabouts, to come and watch some of definitely Australia's and some of the world's best athletes, including.
And this year, there was, I was told there was 9,000 people there. I don't know if that's true or not, but Fred Curley was there, one of the best sprinters. And I went by myself because I was just so excited to go. Didn't need to go there, I just wanted to watch. I was just so happy with that. 9,000 people there, and I'm standing there on the fence, and Steve came over and said g'day. And we haven't seen each other in 20
plus years.
So, and then while we're chatting, he said, I've got this dream. I need to introduce you to a mate of mine. And he introduced me to a guy called Brendan Cole. He's a gold medalist at the Commonwealth Games, an Olympian, 400-metre hurdler. And you then said to me, my dream is that the three of us plus Simon, who's a really good mate of yours, I've raced against before, unbelievable runner. You said, my dream is that the four of us form a team, a 4x400 metre team, and we try and break the 40-year national record for the men's 4x400 between the age category of 40 and 44. And
wow. And the team is made up of two Olympians, Brendan and myself, and BJ is one of my oldest mates. We were roommates together. My first team I went away on as a junior and became immediate friends. We lived in a house together with Georgia for a couple of years, and then we were roommates together at his first Olympics in London in 2012, which was unbelievable. Like, we shared a room and shared that experience, which was great. And then I obviously saw Hugh starting to run 400s online, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then Simon, a dad from primary school. So he's got kids at Hampton Primary where my kids go to school. And Simon, like Hugh, took up running when he was 37. Were you 37 when you did? When his daughter took up running, and he wanted to do it with her, which is incredible. So these three guys in my life, and I was like, I can see a world where this is a relay team.
Are you keeping an eye on Hugh's times?
Yeah, he needed to get into a window before I would ask him. And a lot of people wouldn't understand that athletics can be a real team sport. It can be this amazing camaraderie within sport, and I love that.
And when we started talking about it, we started talking about what we get out of the sport and what we get out of team sport. And we kind of realised that all of us in our life, when we're at our happiest, it's when we have some kind of purpose that we're working towards, when we feel really connected. Like, movement and purpose is our connection. And so we have this WhatsApp group or this text message group. Steve came up with the incredibly intelligent name, witty name of the Smile Relay with the small s and then capital M. Because it is a mile and distance.
The mile relay, yeah.
It's a mile relay.
Really good.
It's really good.
Really good. And connecting over a purpose through movement makes us smile. And so we've got this relay team, and then Steve said, when are we going to try and have a go at this national record? We found an event. We've got a couple of events that we're going to have a crack at it at.
We do, yeah. So the Zatopek event is coming up on the 2nd of December. And so we've got a opportunity. They've been very kind.
That's soon.
We've been at this for a little bit.
We've been training for a long time for this.
Since Murray's meet.
Yeah.
You guys have been training for a long time, and we've been at it since March.
Yeah.
And is your collective time?
You make an interesting point.
Yeah, it's going to be close. So
okay,
Stephen and Brendan will do it. They are. We trained together last Friday, and I cannot believe how fast the two of them are. Like, it is mind blowing how quick they are.
But I then was lifting weights on Sunday morning, and I did my back again. This is Masters Athletics. So within the group, keeping four people on track is the challenge, right? So if my answer to the question would be, if we are all healthy, like, I think it's quite doable. If we're all healthy for 4 weeks leading in, I think it's definitely doable. But the biggest challenge is all staying on track. Simon, to his credit, has been pushing through some serious, like, chronic ongoing injuries to get there for us.
Yeah, but doing anything he can. But that's the beauty of this thing. We've chosen an event, and this is what we want to encourage other people to do. I guess men also who, in their 40s, it can be a time where you feel a bit lost, especially if you look at the mental health statistics. We're encouraging men to, like, form a group and choose an event that you want to train together for. You have your WhatsApp group around it, and it's so supportive, so encouraging, so fun, so connecting. And I mean, Simon's a great example. He's been injured for the last however long, since June, but he hasn't stopped doing some kind of training. So he's stayed really fit just because he doesn't want to let us down. But yeah, the four of us, and we're raising money as well. So we thought if we can do this, we're going to try and raise money for the Community Spirit Foundation.
Incredible. yeah, I've had a bit of a connection with the Community Spirit Foundation over the last few years, and we're trying to raise.
Recently, what used to be called.
It was the Kathy Freeman Foundation originally, so it was the foundation she founded, and it provides resources to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander kids in remote communities, and it's all about supporting their educational journey.
I think especially in light of the referendum, whichever way you voted, people have voted yes. This is a nice way to I guess, that's why I feel a very strong connection to it at the moment with how devastated I felt. But then people are voting no, saying that's not enough. Well, here's something that you might better do. The Community Spirit Foundation do wonderful stuff.
Yeah.
And so if you'd like to donate to that cause, to encourage us to run fast.
That would be wonderful. And I think, you know what, whether we get there or not, like I've just loved being a mediocre, middle-aged guy running. Like it's part of that is why I feel comfortable to do this. Like I never would have felt comfortable to go and put myself on athletics track at a competition, particularly one like at Zatopek level where there's going to be elite runners running around and a lot of people watching. But now I'm like, embrace the challenge, have fun with it, and like doesn't really matter. Like I've already had my fun. I've already had my fun with these boys along the way. I've loved it. It's got me excited. I've never felt more in my body than when I sprint, and they brought that back for me. So I'm very grateful for the boys for taking up running in their late 30s and making me want to do it again.
Well, that's great. You'll get a lot of joy in my running then.
Hugh, I've got a gift for you and the rest of the boys, which I thought I'd bring in. The rest of the boys, you feel free to enjoy this, but it's for the rest of the relay team,
okay, that's
guys. But you can enjoy.
I'll enjoy it. Yeah.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Hey boys, it's Kathy Freeman here. How you going? Special shout out to Steve, of course, Hugh, BJ and Simon. I know you've got a relay coming up. I wanted to wish you all the very best. Have fun, stay positive, listen to your body, and yeah, just try and relax into it.
I will.
Relax the shoulders, have a relaxed face, deep breaths if you're feeling a little bit nervous beforehand, but have fun and enjoy yourself. Bye.
Bye, Kathy.
That is amazing.
She's the best. Thank you so much for doing that, Kathy.
Oh,
You're the greatest.
Kathy Freeman
said my name.
Read your name.
She's heard of me though.
That is amazing. I remember. I'll never forget watching her run. In Sydney.
That is unbelievable. Thank you. That is a gift and a
Don't
half.
thank me. It's genuinely thank you, Catherine, for doing that for us. Very generous of you, and we hope to do you proud as a relay team.
Amazing.
I mean, would she want to come and what? No, probably not. That's okay.
Well,
Amazing.
Steve, this has been incredible. So interesting, and so generous of you as well to tell all those stories from school to your career. It's so helpful, so interesting, and so nice to see you again.
Thank you guys for doing all you do. It's been a real pleasure to be on here.
Do you still keep in touch with Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly?
Quick one on that.
Oh,
so 2 things happened.
what?
2 things happened. Three things happened.
Yeah.
First one, the next movie he did after that Rove appearance was Land of the Lost, something like that.
I'm not sure.
It was a scientist inspired by
Yes.
a poster of a pole vaulter. Evidence number 1. Evidence number 2. I went and watched the farewell to George W. Bush that he did. He did a one-man show.
Yep.
I went and watched it, I sat next to Paul. We just competed at Madison Square Garden ourselves in an indoor competition, the Milrose Games, and we booked tickets and we sat there. And I was like 5th row back, dead center. And I walked out afterwards and was like, Paul, I felt like Will Ferrell was looking me in the eye, literally, for that entire show. And he said, Will Ferrell was looking you in the eye for the entire show.
He noticed it as well.
Yeah. And then I was like, okay, well, that's all just coincidence, right?
Sure.
And so then a couple years later, I was working at Stockland after I'd retired. So this is like way after. We're talking like 2015 or something, right? Like a lot of time has gone past. And who is the guy that does the NRL like interviews on the NRL footy show? He like Bo
Fatty
someone
Borden
maybe?
Yes.
Yeah?
Bo Ryan.
Bo Ryan.
Yeah.
Bo Ryan was interviewing Will Ferrell. And he says, Will, can you do an Australian accent? And Will Ferrell's Australian accent was Steve Hooker, Australian pole vaulter.
That's what he said.
That's what he said.
Whoa. Oh my God.
I rest
But that's
my
coincidence.
case.
That's coincidence.
There's been plenty of Steve pole vaulters.
So, Will, if you're listening, I think we're best friends. And,
Yeah.
and feel free to just reach out whenever you like.
I mean, I think the line is, did we just become best friends?
That is the one. That is the one.
Incredible, Steve. Thank you, mate.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Well, I can see why he is one of your favourite Steves, if not the favourite Steve, Hugh, because he's a magnificent, not only just a magnificent Steve, he's a magnificent man.
Yeah.
He is.
He really is. Wow.
He certainly is. And I was so excited by this when we first started planning it. Now I'm just terrified. I've looked up the meet, which is Zatopek. I didn't think they'd let us race in that. It's a really big event in Melbourne's track and field.
That'd be Emil Zatopek, the runner.
It would be. People
named
wondering, you're
after.
right.
Yeah.
Classic you.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't bore us with the details, mate. But yeah, I mean,
You just love people named Emil.
No, yeah.
He's one of your favourite Emils.
Emil Hirsch, Emil Zatopek. I could go on.
so Saturday, the 2nd of December, we will be attempting the men's national, the 40-year record for the men's 400 in between the age group of 40 and 44. We'll be having a crack at the national record, and I'm bloody terrified.
And a national record that's set for, has been held for like 40 years or
years,
something,
yeah.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be there on the fence.
Do you know if any of the guys who hold it, I've given it to you already, hold it, know you're going to have a crack? Is
No,
that-
but that's a great no.
Okay.
Probably not. We
Cool.
need to try and find them somehow. I
Yeah.
mean, that'd be in their 80s. Amazing.
Yeah.
So 2nd of December, if you'd like to come along, if you want to come along, if you want to donate to what we're doing, to the Community Spirit Foundation, there will be a link in the show notes. But if you want to come along on the night, if you buy a ticket through the link that we've provided in the show notes, once you buy a ticket, there'll be an option to buy an Imperfects ticket. And $5 from each ticket will go towards Community Spirit Foundation, which is very exciting. So
I'm tempted to encourage people to come along and cheer for you guys with a pink dildo, but that might, like that.
please don't do it.
Undermine the
It might
seriousness of the
undermine-
event.
because people. It's a very serious event, isn't it? Like
It is a very serious event. Maybe
Yeah.
if you want to wear pink, just as a show of support.
Just
yeah.
a little wink.
Yeah, even if it's
A
just
pink
like it's a little, just as a pink wink to what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
If you've got some pink on, if you just wink at me, if you wink at me and you're wearing pink, I'll know.
Yeah. So just to be clear though, don't come to this event with a big pink dildo.
Oh, please don't.
No, don't do that.
There's
Definitely
something
don't
you
do
shouldn't do.
that. That's something you shouldn't do.
You
Yeah.
can wear whatever you want, but if you're wearing pink
Yeah.
and you wink, I'll know that you're supporting us. You're there for us. That'd be great.
Okay.
Good. So yes, it's at Lakeside Stadium in Albert Park in Melbourne, and it's a wonderful, wonderful night. Even when we're not there, it's in fact more so when we're not there. It's a wonderful night, but we'll be there.
Can't wait.
So there was a lot of stuff in that episode that really stood out to me, but I think you guys probably know the bit that really, I nearly fell off my chair. I was so like transfixed with when Steve talked about when he had that final jump to win his gold medal, when he went into and almost like he went into the zone telling the story. Like he told the story of how he was in the zone and how he was in flow. And it was like he went back to that space. He kind of closed his eyes a lot while he was telling it, and he was kind of moving his body as in like he was going through the visualization that I just loved it. I absolutely loved it. So I want to talk about visualization.
Yeah.
But like before we get into it, very simply, it's the idea that thinking about something will make it more likely to happen, or thinking about something will make you better at something. Josh, you and I have we have a natural negative attitude towards visualization.
I do.
And well, we both do. And I don't know if you think why, you'll know why.
Yep. I do. Are we going to talk about that?
I reckon.
There was a guy who,
Like a potential prospect for our sister, and he sort of was hanging around with us a bit. And
Potential. What was she on Man Oh Man or something? Like what was?
she'd
Which
met him.
suitor?
She'd met him, and completely understandable. She was interested in him. He was this huge television star from the US, extremely handsome. She didn't really know him that well at all. She was like, "Yeah, why don't you come over and meet the family?"
Yeah.
And he was very big on visualization to the point where I remember him telling our entire family, regaled the whole family of the fact that many years ago he started visualizing. He would just wake up every morning and start saying, "Red Ferrari, red Ferrari, red Ferrari," and then he goes, "And now what do I drive?"
3 red Ferraris. It's really smart. You should have kept going.
say it 10 times.
Or for like some variety, red Ferrari, black Ferrari, white Mazda. just for a knockabout town car, you know. You can't drive a Ferrari every day. It's madness.
Well, then he said, "What do I drive now?" And he just shrugged his shoulders and pretended he's driving. He goes, "Red Ferrari." And I remember just the colour draining out of George's face as I could see her going,
Yeah.
"Nope, this is not the one."
Yeah, I think so.
Much to George's credit.
Yeah.
So anyway, yes, that's why I think that's what I've always sort of thought visualization was.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I always felt it was a bit weird at the time because he was like a very successful actor with a lot of money, and he'd clearly just used the money he had to buy the car.
Oh.
I couldn't see why the saying it affected.
Well,
Like,
yeah, there are two ways to get what you want: visualization or heaps of money.
Yeah.
Like heaps of money does also work.
yeah, and he had both, so well done for him. But
He was on a massive show in the US, and that's how he got all his money. And then he was trying to say to us that, but that's the
but it was just the visualization, and
Yeah.
so I've always had a bit of a not a great relationship with visualization. Because of that, and because it just always feels like there's so many other factors that go into it to success. And B, whenever I've tried it or someone suggests I do it, I can only ever end up thinking failure rather than the success. Like I'll start off going like visualize playing a great show, but then I'll end up visualizing not being able to play a single. I mean, it happens at the moment in the live shows. If I try and think ahead to playing a song that I play at the end, then I reckon it makes me much worse. I've just never been able to get visualization right. And
So visualization technically does work for you, but you're just doing it in the wrong way.
I guess so. Yeah, it's manifesting failure.
Yeah.
No, but
Yeah.
you play beautifully all the time, so it's not working.
Oh.
If you're thinking failure and then you perform really well, then
Yeah. But if I just try not to think about it too much, like I do the practice
Yeah.
and the work and everything
Yeah.
like that, and then I just like don't think about it until I have to do it, then I'll play a much better show than if I think about it beforehand. Then when I get there, I'll be so racked with nerves that I won't be able to get in the moment and in flow and be able to perform the way I want to perform. It'll still be okay, but it's not going to be the way I'd like to do it.
Well, I'd planned in my head how I want to talk about visualization here, but you've brought up a really interesting thing very early on. So what I would say to you, and what I read a lot about, and is that for some people is a very difficult thing to just jump in and do straight away. One of the things you can do to prepare for it, and you probably need to do a bit of this before you start, is you like loving kindness meditations. You can there are meditations that are an option. You can do loving kindness or self-compassion meditations where you actually so you build up a whole lot of flying hours where you are kind to yourself and you have positive thoughts about yourself. Calm, for example, have great loving kindness and self-compassion meditations.
Yeah.
I'd try and get a few under your belt of those. When I say a few, lots.
I think the thing that I struggle with being able to do it, and this is not because I was blown away by Steve's story, and it's the first time I've really heard it explained so well that it does work, and it was done in a way that felt a way that resonates with me. But when I try and do it and try and be positive about myself, it falls into you're so arrogant. You're so who do you think you are thinking these things about yourself? The framing of love and compassion or love and kindness meditation seems a lot more gentle in that there's a sort of, rather than arrogance, like you're going to go out there and kill it, more of a compassionate, you deserve to have the experience that you want.
Yep. So my point being, the more of those you do, then you try and do visualization after maybe a couple of months of doing those.
Yeah.
And hopefully you've sort of retrained your brain to be a lot more generous to yourself. So that's why I'm saying you do that before you try the visualization.
Oh, so you do it for a few months, to get
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep.
So I feel like it would take time if you're in a place where you're like really, really negative on yourself. To the extent where maybe even you don't like yourself, it would take a long time to get out of that.
To be able to go. I've got a job
that.
interview coming up, and Steve Hooker visualized jumping over, like doing the pole vault and winning gold. He did it. So I'm going to just visualize getting this job. It'd be very hard to just start going, oh, here I'm an interview and I'm answering this really well. You'd probably, Josh, what you just described to us, I think people would probably have that experience. So
yeah.
Visualization is unbelievable. I've realized looking back on my life, I do it all the time. I never have sat down and gone, right time to visualize, but I've just done it a lot. Like the Amazon show that I did at the Athenaeum Theatre, that was like we did 2 shows back to back and that was it. So it's basically 2 takes I had to get this thing onto screen. And I never once said I've got to do good visualization. I did so much visualization and I'll talk through with what you meant to do here.
Oh, that's interesting. You did visualization for the Amazon filming.
So
because I remember in the maybe in the week before you're going to film that. I think it was that when I asked you how you're feeling, and you were like so, and not in an arrogant way at all, obviously, but so confident and just so like,
Yeah, I'd pictured it happening 1,000 times.
yeah,
Like I had rehearsed it in my head how it was going to go and what. Yeah, so
and even on the night, I remember you saying you were just like you're so like locked in, kind of like how Steve was saying on that gold medal jump. He was just so locked in.
Well, I might even use that as an example. It's not a very relatable example, but I think people will be able to translate it to their lives, hopefully. But
A big event you've got.
yeah.
Thing,
So first of all, what is it? It's the idea that thinking about something will make it more likely to happen. It's the idea that visualizing something, thinking about something, making mental imagery of something will make you better at something.
Hence why my failure visualizations are actually very effective.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So just why it works, I think if you could look at cognitive behavioral therapy, for example, our thoughts dictate our feelings and our feelings dictate our behaviors or influence our behaviors then. So if you're having negative thoughts, it will lead to negative feelings and that leads to negative behavior. Positive thoughts will lead to positive feelings, which leads to positive behavior. So it's kind of a little bit based around that.
Which isn't Barbara Fredrickson wrote the book Positivity, which is a good one for that.
Yeah, totally. The other reason it works is that the brain can't always tell the difference between something that you've imagined and something that's actually happened before.
Oh, yeah.
So if you think about the fact that like sometimes you're like maybe with deja vu, or sometimes you're thinking to yourself, oh, have we had this conversation before? Did I dream this? Like you're a bit, you might have a dream and it's really vivid, and then later you're like, I feel like we discussed this the other day, or I feel like but it was a dream. Your brain can't quite tell exactly all the time if it's happened or not.
Now, these days for me, it's like, did I dream that, think it, or hear it in a podcast somewhere?
Yeah, exactly.
I know it's entered my consciousness somehow through one of the 1,000 different ways.
Yeah. Did you tell me that on WhatsApp, on DM, on text message, in a phone call, or did I dream it?
Yeah, it's like it's so good how you can like search message threads. You can search your computer. I want to search my entire consciousness. How do I locate how do I locate that piece of information? I don't know where I heard it. I heard it somewhere, read it somewhere. Anyway, yeah.
So I think, what visualization does when you picture something over and over in a positive way, it actually creates new neural pathways in your brain. So that's like neuroplasticity. So the ability to change your brain. And what it does, so in Steve's example, or in my example, it actually creates optimism around that event. So when you asked me how I was feeling about the show, I felt great because the amount of times I'd pictured it going really well, I knew it was going to, I felt optimistic rather than having thoughts of, oh my God, I'm going to, like, if I make a mistake and I make the same mistake in the second show, we're stuffed. Like there's no option here. I had such optimistic feelings about it. And because I have optimistic feelings about it, my behaviors that followed were all really optimistic and positive. Like, yep, definitely going to nail this.
How much of that is connected to, like, you feel more optimistic or positive about doing something in a certain place because of the level of comfort you have in that place? So familiarity.
Yeah,
like a home ground advantage.
Oh, totally. Hence why I wanted to do the special at the convention centre in Melbourne, because I've done so many shows there. I'm so comfortable there. I know exactly what it's going to feel like. I know exactly who I'll see, which security will be on, what the crowd looks like, what the crowd will sound like when they're giving you feedback or whatever. And then Manager Beck was like, that is a terrible place to do. It has to be the Athenaeum.
For what we're doing for this filming.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely, because your brain is more familiar with it. So it's easier to visualize as well.
Yeah.
So I guess what it does, Glenn Robbins said in an episode to us, one of the things he took away from the late, great Shane Warne was that whenever he's nervous about something, Shane Warne would always think, and his advice to people was, relax, you've done this before. You have done this before, whether it's bowling, whether it's making really great calls on a panel show. You've done it before, so you can do it, and you know you can do it. I think, for example, for Steve, he hadn't competed at the Bird's Nest before, but the amount of times he visualized it when he got there, he kind of felt like he had. And so when something pops up, when you're doing a job interview or when you're in an important meeting that you're visualizing for, or Steve's thing, when issues pop up or problems happen, your brain has this feeling, well, I've been here before. I've done it. I've succeeded here before. Instead of trick your brain into feeling like you have.
And that's I guess an important distinction, because often what I can do is, yes, I might have done it before, but I immediately think about the one time I did it where I didn't do it well.
Yeah.
And that kind of like haunts my memory. And that's all I'm thinking about. It's like, yeah, you remember that time you stuffed it up? Even if that time was 1 out of 100.
Yeah.
I remember that negativity bias. I remember that time instead of like all the times that I did it fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. I was just going to try to give an example from my life that's coming up and I'm going to think about, but I can't stop. Now I'm picturing myself running around an ass-track with a pink dildo. So figure that on my head.
Visualize that.
Yep. How do you do visualization on that note? So I've got a list of things here that I think really help. First thing is to treat it like a meditation. So I think you actually put aside time in the day where you're going to visualize this job interview coming up and you do it. It's a bit like meditation. They recommend as soon as you wake up, a really great time to do it for 5 minutes. And maybe 5 minutes just before you go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
That way, kind of your subconscious goes to work as well. Before you go to sleep, and you're.
I was just thinking about all the things that I've been hearing recently, which I've started doing that you should do. Like first thing you get up, like exercise or have a cup of coffee outside, or all these things. I'm like, what order do you? When they're all supposed to be the first thing you do when you get up, which order do you do all these things?
3 a.m.
Yeah,
to fit everything in.
Yeah, fit it in, and also like, so which one is higher priority to be the first thing for your brain?
Got a journal.
Yeah,
do that.
Journal. Yeah,
You got to exercise for half an hour.
Yep. There's about 6 things, and I don't know what order to do them in.
Got to eat a bowl of nuts with some yogurt and kefir. There's so much to do.
Yeah.
So, for example, that would never work for me in a million years,
Yeah.
like first thing in the morning, because I've got 2 kids in my bed with me. So, I found myself whenever I have a shower, I like visualize this stuff. When I'm in the car, I'll visualize it a lot. So that's sort of, but anyway, work out if you can try to do 10 minutes a day, if you've got a big event coming, you want to visualize. Before you do that though, write down what you want in detail. So what do you actually want to happen? Actually write it down. So this is not, again, we're not saying I want to get a red Ferrari. So, I mean, it's got to be it's got to be wedded to reality in some way, shape or form. If you've got an event coming up where it's realistic that you could go really well, like a gold medal event or, I mean, all elite sports people do this. So this is not a new thing. But if it could be a job interview, an important meeting, it could be, I don't know, a date.
Speech at a wedding.
A speech at a wedding, yeah. So write down exactly what you want. And then in doing that, make sure you engage all 5 senses. And the more detail you go into, the better. So I certainly, in preparing for the Athenaeum show, like I knew what it smelled like. So I'd been there a couple of weeks before. So I could imagine it's like this sort of a old theatre type smell. And what it would look like is like bright lights in my eyes. I can't see much, but like I always picture that. I'm always a bit cold on stage because I don't want to have the room too warm because people don't laugh as much apparently when it's warm. And also people fall asleep, so it's often quite cold. I always wear a t-shirt, so I picture being a little bit cold while I'm doing it. I didn't picture what I was tasting, to be honest, but that was
you lazy pig. God, unbelievable. How did you even do the show?
I pictured the silence like before, like in between when I'm talking, when I take breaths, that kind of stuff. So I picture all that kind of stuff.
That's amazing. I had no idea you did all that. That's
Well, the funny thing is I kind of never did as well until I was
you weren't
reading,
conscious of it all.
No, not really. I just like when I'm in the shower, when I'm in the car, I do think about in detail what it's going
But
to be
then when
like.
you're reading about this, you're like, oh, I do all this.
Yeah. And I always have the most positive. It's like the most positive outcome. Like I'm very lucky that my brain defaults to that, I think. I'm just like, well, this is going to be so good. I can't wait for this. Never like I'm going to be so good, but this event is going to be so great, I guess.
I'm going to start visualizing.
Yeah.
Red Ferrari.
And
White Mazda. Got to be realistic.
Benny's done that, obviously, just a white Mazda. Write down, and the other thing is you want to write down the emotion that you'll feel. So picture that emotion as well. So I often picture, so something like that, I picture excitement. Like I just picture the excitement that I'll feel on the night leading up to it. And also when you walk on stage, the first minute can be very disorientating because you get a bigger cheer than you expected or not much of a cheer, or you might see someone looking angry or you might see someone looking disengaged in the first minute and it's so disorientating. And so I always picture all this stuff so that it's like when I get on stage, I'm like, yeah, I knew it was going to look like this. I knew it'd smell like this. I knew that would. So it's like there's less foreign stuff, unpredictable stuff coming my way, I guess.
So, obviously like a big part of life is uncertainty, like that is the thing we all have to deal with. So does it then throw you more if the thing, like what if you visualize all these things and then you walk in and the smell's different, and there's like 5 things that weren't what you expected. Does that throw you, or does it?
Yeah, a little bit. But one of the things it says is you should actually imagine setbacks and challenges that might occur and how you will successfully deal with that on the night or on the day.
Yeah, okay. Interesting.
One of the biggest setbacks I found, I'm over it now, is when there's someone in the first few rows who just looks angry or they just hate that they're there or their partner's drag them along. That's always a challenge to me because I've got to not look at them, but I can't help it. And then I'm worried, I'm trying to get them on board rather than worry about all the other people who are enjoying it. So I often picture that and then I sort of picture dealing with it really well. And
so then when you get up there, you're like, there you are, Mr. Grumpy Bum.
It's a bit the same way like with neurodiversity, which I've learned a lot about of late. But when like for people who are on the spectrum, uncertainty is very difficult to deal with. And so what people will do for them, especially kids, is they'll create social stories. So they'll take photos of where they're going. They'll tell them who's going to be there. They'll tell them how loud it's going to be.
Yeah.
They'll tell them who might come and speak to them. They'll tell them how long they'll be there for.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just reducing all the uncertainty in your mind. I think potentially visualization is a lot around reducing uncertainty and creating familiarity. I think very much in the same way we do for, I think about some of the places we go to where it could be a big event. There is so much at stake for us, but for some people who are potentially on the spectrum, you think about how overwhelming it is when your brain, operates in that way. We're just creating more certainty, I think, for ourselves.
Well put. Yeah. Fantastic.
That's great.
Anyway, I will hopefully see some of you in pink winking as we try and raise money for Community Spirit Foundation, a wonderful organisation doing incredible work with Indigenous community.
At Lakeside Stadium.
Lakeside Stadium, 2nd of December. I wonder if Kathy Freeman will be there. Who knows?
I mean, if Kathy Freeman's there in pink winking at you, that might be an all-time favourite thing that's ever happened to me.
That might throw the visualizations out.
I'll have to visualise that. I'll just fall down and close.
Thank you, Hugh. Thank you, Steve Hooker. Lovely to see him again after our wonderful night at Rove all those years ago. And I will be there watching you break the record.
That's fine.